to 2.
I don't see a need to limit on property, because that's
Yeah, no, that's,
your property, you live on, it's your
Right,
space, you're
right.
entitled, as
You're-
far as I'm concerned.
yeah, well, it's just what we're allowing, and it makes sense because they can help regulate the whole thing by being on property.
But it would be about owning additional properties as STRs, even if you're a resident that you're asking.
Right, right. Do we want to put a limit on that, a cap on it?
Our current expectation is that there's roughly how many of those properties?
Well, we never really broke it up. We know we have around 75 or 80 residential properties. I don't think,
Yeah, it
if
is
we
broken up.
broke it up
There's a few.
between on-property residents?
We have it, no, we only have it listed whether it's
Resident.
owned by a resident of Shandaken or a non-resident of Shandaken. Not that it would be a lot of work to take it from there, because all you'd have to do is compare the registered address with the address of the STR.
Right,
Um,
right. And I don't
on the
know
one
that it
hand-
would affect much.
Right, as much as, the idea here is we don't want every single available property in the town to become an STR, and I completely agree with that, but the current numbers suggest that's not gonna happen. We've got the vast majority of the STRs.
Understood, but we
Yeah.
don't also want people jumping from the non-resident to the resident.
We expect to see some, if we approach the cap, then we do expect to see some current second homeowners to move their address here so that they fall under the no cap. So that number will shift a bit, but what were the numbers? It's something like, what did you just say, 76 resident
That's what I recall.
owned?
7680, right.
And, here we go, sorry, I just found it, opening now.
Resident?
Discussion from the audience, please.
I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to a Kaplan residence, but I think it might be something that we would need to see if it's needed. Like, let's see, I don't know, and this is just,
Yeah,
you know,
I'm
an
just
option.
throwing out ideas.
Like, go with what we, well, not exactly what we have, but go without it for now, and like you said, see where the numbers, see if the numbers start jumping all of a sudden, and then revisit it, but, I don't know if it's necessary right this second, in my eyes, because we're not close to it yet, right? We're not.
Well, question,
It's not a matter of being close to it or.
Or like, let's say we have a cap of 150 for non-residents, right?
Right,
So I would assume that we're not gonna go lower than that for residents, right?
no.
So if we start seeing it creep up to, higher numbers, I think then would be the time to take the action, but that's just my opinion.
can a cap on residents be done via resolution? If
Yes,
Okay.
that's in the, yeah.
Okay, so if no decision was
Any
made
of the,
now,
right, no decision need to be made now. I
So
mean,
if
it's
we
something
got-
we can address in 6 months to a year or further.
so to Kyle's point, if we do get close to that number, we wouldn't have to do a whole, this basically to add that cap. We wouldn't have to do
Right.
working meetings and
Yeah.
public hearings. We would,
Yeah.
in theory, be able to do it by resolution.
Right, right.
How do you enforce it? Or how do you know?
Through
Like
permits.
residents, we can kind of figure out, right? But all it takes is, I don't know, who's gonna do it? The building inspector?
Yeah, building,
So-
zoning.
All it takes
Office.
is somebody lying. Not saying that everyone's gonna do that. I think you're all very honest people, but,
Very.
yeah, I just,
No,
I
well, I mean,
would
you
see
can.
some issue with enforcement.
There are a
Well,
lot of potential enforcement issues.
Well,
Yeah.
of course, and with anything there is. And there are going to be issues in cases where undetected,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just throwing it out there. If
Yeah,
we
yeah,
want to, forego with that, we can revisit it another time. I would like to throw in about a 30-day hold period. I think our former supervisor mentioned something, when somebody puts in an application, we send it out to the neighbors that there's an application forthwith. We can put a hold, we can just say there's a 30-day wait period until we hear from anybody.
Sure.
As just,
Do we wanna formalize? I believe that's what Rob was talking about. There-
yeah, we'll put some
we-
formal language that there will be a 30-day wait
And then
period
if a
after
neighbor
an
does
application.
complain, do we wanna say what that procedure would be? Are we, in the beginning of the STR committee, we talked about the letters are sent out, and if a neighbor has, not just, I don't wanna live next to one, but if they have just cause, then it would get kicked over to planning?
We had talked about the first year of this process, extending the planning board meetings starting or ending a half hour earlier or later, and that it would be, there's a certain number of these licenses, whether it be 5 or whatever, that gets sent out.
Right.
And then it would be, these are the ones that are being entertained.
Right.
And if there's a complaint,
Right.
which I think we all assume that most of them won't have complaints.
Yeah, I think we assume that most
Yeah.
of them, that, like you said, maybe there's gonna be up to 5.
Yeah, yeah, and they're not there for couples counseling, so it's like, if it's a noise thing and they can put up a hedge or a fence or, you know,
Right.
a line of sight.
Right.
And I had talked to Cliff, from the planning board about if they would be able to handle that, and yeah, I think they would have to.
Right.
But that seems like the easiest thing without establishing a grievance committee,
Right.
which we can do that route too, if we wanted to.
No,
Right.
if it sticks to a minimum number, then I think shipping it through the planning board is the best way. And again, only if there's a legitimate concern
Right.
expressed by a
Right.
neighbor.
Right, if it's just like,
Yeah,
oh, I don't like
neighbors object,
STRs.
pass it right
Right.
through.
Which,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, also, like, my neighbor had the bear got in, broke the garbage
It was
lid.
resolved.
I
Yeah.
texted him, he's up on the law, he knows that he's gonna have a wildlife-proof dumpster, but he cleaned it all up, apologized, got a metal lid dumpster, no problem. But if he hadn't,
Yep.
when I get that notice, I'd say, oh, yeah, the garbage has been all over since the beginning of the year.
Hopefully
So
that all
then,
goes
when they go to inspect, they'd make sure that that garbage can's the way it should be to
Yep.
prevent that. So that would be give people that venue.
Try to take care of it in-house before.
Yeah, yeah.
So do we want to put
And-
that language in the law that neighbors
Yeah,
will have the opportunity to
neighbors
voice
will-
complaints through the
Right,
planning board?
and should we make the first person you go to the inspector, the code enforcement officer, or the clerk?
Well, I just think about like the special use permit process when you would get a public hearing, right?
Right,
I think it should be similar to that, personally. And
Right.
that's what we had talked about with
Yeah, I
the
think that's-
committee.
I mean, if it turns out to be that the building has, like, if the complaint is, well,
I'm,
the
I'm
building
not,
should be condemned.
I'm not
but-
opposed to the idea of the CEO doing it. And then if it can't be resolved, then it goes to the planning board. That might alleviate some of,
Maybe the CEO can investigate to see if it's a legitimate concern before it goes to the planning board.
I would be fine with that if it,
right, because
it's
you
not
can't
all
just,
time
they
consuming.
can't just show up to the planning board and say,
Right.
I have an issue, or we
Yeah, yeah.
send a letter to the planning.
and
board.
then the code enforcement officer could also schedule those for, say, like, this is who's
Yeah.
taking precedent. Let's do that
Right,
for the,
right.
you know, the June meeting or whatever.
But we're going to have to say, because we can't just leave the CEO as arbiter of,
Yeah.
of who gets to go before the planning board.
Sure, sure,
Right?
sure.
They're just gonna have to take it and say, okay, I'm scheduling you for the planning board. I mean, even if it is a marriage council thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I think it would
everybody's gonna
also-
think their issue is important.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But it could be as easy as Grace saying like, hey, the solution to this is to put up hedges. And then they go to the planning board and it's like, hey, we're putting up hedges. Done,
Right,
hopefully.
right. And whether the two parties agree on that.
Yeah, yeah,
right.
yeah. And realistically, that part's more for future licenses than the bulk that are gonna come in,
Yeah,
you know.
All right, we'll try and word that around in some form that makes sense in the right place. I still think there should be, and it was something I put out in the first draft about, at first I said, nobody with more than 3 units on a property should do STRs. Maybe we could make that 4 or 5 if it makes you feel more comfortable. What I'm trying to get away from is having an apartment house or a property that's full of cottages.
I think the more I think about that, if there would be a clause of, similar to a pre-existing non-conforming clause, because we know that there's already properties doing that.
We
right?
do? Okay.
I believe there's a couple, if I'm not mistaken, right? Wasn't that something during the committee?
Believe there are. a couple.
With 3 units? So,
Well, let's say.
3, yes.
Well, let's say
5,
4.
you're probably gonna end up falling under hotel and being
yeah.
licensed by the county, most likely.
Right, but if that
Yeah.
misses that mark and somebody just comes in and they have an apartment house.
Right. Well, and I think either way, if you do a pre-existing non-conforming clause, then that takes care of both. People that are already maybe have been doing it are okay, and we don't have to shut them down or shut down half their
No,
business.
yeah, I don't run
And then
that.
nobody else will do it.
Sure.
I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Do you think we have? No, we don't list bedrooms.
But even, I mean, I don't know, if you want to make it 6 units, or like you said, previous are okay. We'll
Yeah,
just,
I'm fine with,
I get
that's
that.
not something I'm super
Okay.
hung up on.
But conceptually, like, the problem with the pre-existing bit is, I mean, yes, we might personally know of pre-existing, but do we have any sort of, I guess you'd have to provide documentation that you've had these pre-existing properties for a period of time? It seems easier to maybe just have a limit that's higher than.
I mean like an existing STR right now, that if they're not in the 90 days when this law goes into effect, and say they come in on day 91 for an STR license, too bad, you're no longer pre-existing non-conforming.
And that'd be easy enough to establish through, if you're legally operating, you've been paying tax, so you'd have a tax record. Or you could use your, history on Airbnb or
Okay,
VR.
okay.
Also, maybe the verbiage needs to be changed from pre-existing non-conforming, because that could be confused with the zoning code itself.
Yeah,
Right.
Um,
pre-existing use, I suppose.
Yeah.
right,
Existing in operation for,
currently,
time when the law was
currently
written.
in operation, right, something like that. But you're okay with anything 3 units or more?
how are we saying units? If
Units,
you have 3 cottages, not 3 bedrooms,
not bedrooms.
Was this
3.
structures?
More than 3 separate
Separate.
structures might not be the same as units, because you could have a
You can-
4-unit.
In one structure.
Right, so
I'm meaning,
Now, at the-
like
at-
listings, if you look on,
individual unique listings.
yeah,
Yeah, and so you'd, let's just say you had a 4-unit property,
yeah,
however those units are. You're not gonna be allowed to have any STRs on it, or you can STR the first 2, the first 3, but the 4th one has to be long-term, what? Or, nope, none, you've got too many, you can have no STRs.
no, you can do the 3, but no more than 3.
Okay,
Or
so the
if we
wording is-
decided on, if we were, decide on 4, or we decide
Right.
on 5.
I'm okay with 3. I don't really
Okay.
know that, like, if we're talking about an apartment building and all those apartments being,
We only have a couple of
Yeah,
properties in the
there's
entire
only
town.
two.
Right,
that's gonna
I
apply
know,
to-
but
yeah.
I'm thinking of somebody buying 20 acres
Sure,
and putting up
sure.
50 cottages
Yeah,
and
yeah,
turning
yeah.
them all
Yeah.
STR.
yeah, and it would,
Those people, we would wanna go the special use permit, we
Right.
want them to
It
file.
would-
them
it would
with the
incentivize them to
town,
get a
and
license.
Campground,
Yeah.
Yeah.
licensed properly, yes.
yeah, I'm pretty.
There's a different way to go about running that business, it is not through an STR license.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Does anyone else have something?
I have a rule thing.
Okay.
I don't know if it's important or not, but at the town board meeting, someone got caught up on let's see, this is printed weird.
The trash thing?
No, BI, a gathering or party of more
Oh,
than
yeah.
20
Yeah, yeah.
persons is expressly prohibited. I was wondering if we could change gathering or party to guests, renters, something that doesn't, just, we're not talking about a group of people, we're talking about renting to 20 people or more.
Right. Which page is this? Sorry.
It's page 3, I,
Yeah.
and also I'm fine with the way it is, I get it, but seemed like it confused some people.
I mean, my understanding is most STR operators have a no party clause in their rental contract already. So if this existed, this merely would give the town the ability to step in if a renter was having a party that was already against the rules. This way, the town could step in and break it up.
Am I misreading it? Is it an actual party? Or are we
It-
talking about a group of people?
I think we mean party meaning a group. I believe this means a group.
Right, not a
gathering or
festivity.
group of
Yeah.
More than
Yeah.
20 persons.
It doesn't have to be a festivity.
Mind you, if they're sitting there very quietly, I don't think anyone will care.
An event,
An
a
event.
party or event.
But again, I don't
gathering or
think we
event.
have a single STR in town that can legally, at a 2-person per bedroom capacity, accommodate 20 people. But I know
There are a couple.
people do rent STRs and
Yeah,
then have
this
people
was just-
over as guests.
This was always just,
Yeah.
I mean, it's only a precaution of some of the horror stories you hear from this
Right.
town or
I
that
believe-
town.
And I
or-
just wanna say, I support it, I just think.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, yeah,
no, no, I get that.
Because
I
there's
get
enough
that.
boarding houses up in Oliveria that could get snatched up and host 20 people.
Oh, yeah, easily.
Yeah.
I believe
And
the person
generally,
that was-
even if there is an event of 20 people, if they're well-behaved, nobody's gonna say a word and everything's gonna be just fine. And 2 or 4 people could make more noise than,
I think the woman who brought it up was concerned that at some properties
Yeah.
within,
it's too much.
like, yeah,
Right. Right.
some of the smaller quarter-acre properties that exist in Pine Hill and Phoenicia, for example, that 8 people would be a heck of a crowd. So they were wondering if there's some way to either reduce that number or have it tied to the size of the house. I mean, if you're renting a 1-bedroom house that can have 2 people, should it have a different capacity for gatherings than a 4-bedroom that's on 12 acres? And how would we word that?
I know, and I'm loath to put this limit as it is, just because I don't like, and none of us like to tell people what to do. But yes, it's a small step towards a control of
Yeah. And I
issues that even if it weren't an STR and they were having 20 people over and they were having a loud party, of course, somebody could just call the police and ask them to go over there and quiet them down.
right, there's still got noise. And as I said, every STR owner that I've spoken to already has a clause that prohibits parties.
Right.
So hopefully it's not an issue.
Yeah, I don't think it's an issue either, but. You guys have anything else to add?
No, you covered what I was gonna say.
Yeah, that seems fine. Just quickly checking if there was something comparable in the olive law. There's nothing really different.
Okay.
Just reading through again.
Someone brought up to me over the last week about lowering the the cap on the non-residents. I responded by saying that the STR committee put forward the idea of a 10% cap, and that's where we came up with the number. And again, just like we were talking about, that if in the near future or not so near future, if we wanted to change that cap, we could do it by resolution, if we thought that
I don't
it
think
was,
going lower is gonna be an issue because we know we have.
We're already over the cap.
we're already, and yes, and
Yep.
Yep.
we would be getting a lot of phone calls. We're going to already.
We're not much over it, but we're a little over.
But it's like we said, we can address it at a future date. All right, we have the public hearing set for 6:30 on that first Monday of the month. Does anybody want to change anything else?
I think it's gonna be a hard sell at this point, but I'll just say it for argument's sake, the most frequent phone call and email that I've gotten is still about the fee structure being lowered. So I don't know if we wanna open that discussion or just put it to a vote at the next town board meeting, but that seems to be the thing that people are most, upset about or have the most issue with.
That's the same feedback I'm getting as well.
I think we're all getting that feedback, we're all in
Yeah.
the same
Yeah.
emails.
But, yeah,
Yeah.
other than those emails.
Right.
All my calls are about the Bears.
About the Bears.
Yeah, they're out.
The Bear are out. Well,
But, you know, I'm fine just putting it to a vote if that's what we wanna do.
okay.
But, you know, we've talked about it, and I think we all know where each of us stands at this
Yep.
point, so,
Yep.
yeah. It's up to you guys.
Does anybody have a different target for it that we could discuss?
Yeah, I only, I hate to be this guy, 'cause it's me every time.
That's why we like it.
Sorry. I think the only, you know, a win for us could be to leave the fee where it is and then take away the additional room rate, which, you know, a lot of towns have done, since we're looking at comparable towns. You know, that could be an idea that we could explore. We could explore dropping the whole rate, or we could, you know, depending on what you guys want to do. See what we can-
Well, a lot of towns with lower fees also charge for an inspection, $150 for inspection. We have a range of fees, of course, going from $50 to $500. And I think our first year, we're going to need to cover building inspectors. We're gonna need to cover more secretary staff, and we're gonna need to cover a whole new computer system, software, integrated through all offices of the town. And I think we're at about expending close to $140,000. And it doesn't leave us a whole lot of slush to,
Enforce. I mean, honestly, part of my concern is if 90% of the STRs in town get a license, the 10% who don't, that's still 30 licenses that in theory we would have to do a violation and potentially take to court. And that's the cost that unfortunately I don't personally know what that would entail exactly, but that cost feels, well, it's an unknown, frankly.
Well,
and
since we're
there's gonna
talking
be
about
more than,
unknowns and costs.
there's gonna be more than one inspection. It's,
Sure.
you know, it's
Yeah,
gonna
but they
be.
pay a yearly rate, it's not a
three.
one-time thing.
Right.
I think the suggestion of doing a write-up for people to have prior to the next town board meeting, or having it at the town board meeting, would be smart.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
And
Because then we
actually
could do a
just-
projected income, projected cost.
You know, our fees start at $600. You said 50. The lowest fee
Our-
for a two-bedroom.
Our fee, no, I didn't say our fees start at 50. I said around town.
Oh,
Some of
okay,
the
around town,
lowest,
okay.
like Woodstock, will start
You
at
know,
50.
a
but then
one-bedroom
there's-
is 450, a 200, at the low end would be 600. So I mean, we are, yeah. In this town, the fees
But
range
the
from
second
600
year
to
is
1,000.
300 for the first, for the one.
Right, right.
That 150 pays for a lot of administration and the inspections and whatnot. And we're not doing an inspection, but every third year. So that's reduced down for the homeowner. We're not doing a water sample requirement. That's reduced off the homeowner.
Sure, but the license fee will still stay the same. The only thing they're not gonna pay again is the $150 application fee.
Right.
So it's fine to justify it in the first year and say these are all the costs we're gonna have, but long-term,
Long-term, and just like the cap, though, we can come back in a year and say, oh, you know what, we can reduce the fee.
we could, I'm not good at giving money back.
We're not giving money back. No, it's for the next year.
Yeah.
One of the issues I have with the fees, and it's not that they're crazy exorbitant, it's just that if we're looking to focus on and prioritizing the residents,
And the safety of the town,
Absolutely.
and the safety of the town.
Yeah.
And that means making sure that we're,
but the
We're
fees are gonna
solvent
be
at the end
easy
of the
for
year.
someone who's buying a property for the sole purpose of making money. It's gonna be easy for them to absorb it. What's not gonna be easy is the people who are looking to be able to afford the home they own with taxes and other expenses, mortgages, and this is what's putting them by, occasional rentals, where most of the law is exactly what you just said. It takes care of the residents, protects the town for safety, and we're trying to discourage out-of-town investors.
Okay.
Fees work backwards. I think the fees favor the out-of-town investors who have deep pockets, and don't favor people who live here, who are doing a little bit of the STR business to get by.
well.
And I know
I'm
there is a big
I'm
expense
willing-
coming for the
I'm
town.
willing to
but-
lower it a little bit for people who live on their property.
I think that is a good place to start, definitely, yeah.
Agreed. I'd be in for that.
And again, like, I know how much compromise has been made on this issue, so I'm not spitting fire about it. I'm very thankful that we've been able to talk about it as thoroughly as we have. But I think, like Elizabeth just said, I think that's a good jumping off point.
Right.
Yeah.
And since that is our least
But I don't wanna
common
do a
type,
jumping off point and then find out that that isn't good enough for you guys. I mean, I think we should all be
Sure.
pretty close to agreement. No, not everybody's gonna vote yes, but, if you're saying, you know, you're concerned about the resident, so the resident,
That's-
the resident
yeah, the
right
ones that
now
live
is
here. Yeah.
$300 plus $150 for an additional bedroom. So if I drop that down to $50 for the additional bedroom,
I think that would be a lot better. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that would be much better.
Agreed.
Yeah.
for just that one.
For just that, for that category, for the
for that one
residents, who
category.
owner up,
We're okay with
Yeah.
everything else?
yeah.
Sure, I think you're, I personally, from where I stand, as far as taking care of residents, that's great.
Yeah.
I still think there's gonna be a lot of pushback, that's fine, we get that on everything,
Yeah.
I get that,
Yeah,
but yeah.
okay.
And I also think, like what you said, if we can justify, if we had a document
I'll
saying,
put a document
Oh, yeah,
out.
that'll
I mean,
this is
know
where,
how
I
much
think
we're
that's gonna
I know how
appease.
much we're gonna spend, and it's gonna be
Yeah.
around $120,000, $140,000.
But a breakdown
Yeah.
for that, I think that'll be what we've got when people say something, we need to
Sure.
be able to respond, I think it's a
Sure.
good idea. Several people have asked for it, and Kevin's right.
Yeah.
I agree with him.
Because I think that's the second most asked question.
Yeah,
I'm just saying,
I know, I get it,
yeah.
I get it.
happy to help with that.
So procedurally, you're gonna send these to the lawyer? Is that the,
I'll see if I could put what I can And if I can't figure out where it should go, then I'll send it to Ben to see where the best place this should be,
And verbiage.
and the verbiage, right. Is there anything else we'd like to talk about? We need to break for an executive session. We have something to discuss in private. Make the motion that we take a break for executive session.
Who wants to make it?
Oh, I think he's making them.
I make the motion.
Second.
I need a second.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye?
Aye. Okay. We'll be back.
Still make sense.
Never know.
Just the Bears. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks for being so patient. We had a few contractual issues to discuss. Made some decisions, and not all, though. Some were just information. I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Good night, everyone. We'll have a public hearing in a couple of weeks, when we get all this new stuff put in here.
You can say whatever you want, the meeting's over.
Is it different than what you said before?
Yes.